Hello everybody and welcome back to That's Life. Me, Ryan Glemon. I'm back with another video today, and it's been a little bit of a longer time, sort of just under a week, but yeah, I had some ideas of videos, but we're back again with another video today, and perhaps this is a sort of a video obviously that I would be doing, but hopefully, as most of you will know, this video will be on the passing of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II, the last week, and I thought I'll give my thoughts about it, and I thought it was an important subject for me to take time to think about before I deliver my thoughts, and just provide some ideas about what's happened and and the life of Queen Elizabeth, and sort of remembering but celebrating as well at the same time. So hopefully you're all doing very well, whatever you're doing currently, and whatever time of day it is for you. But yeah, so I thought maybe it's maybe you've already heard a lot about Queen Elizabeth, or maybe you haven't heard anything about it. So basically, on Thursday, around, I think it was around 4:30, which is the official time, I think. But then at around 6:30, it was the news broke, especially here in the UK, that Queen Elizabeth had passed away. And well, there were reports earlier in the day that her health was not so good. She was under medical supervision. Not sure what point, but news broke sort of midday, just before midday, about that. And then also news broke that a lot of her close royal family had been rushed towards Balmoral to be with her. And so at that point, I think it was quite telling, especially for me, that something was going on. Obviously, being 96 years of age, her reign was becoming to an end at some point in the next few years, I think. Everyone could make a reasonable judgment about that, and it was just a question of when. But obviously, it still was a shock at the time when the announcement of her death was made. It was a shock for people to register, especially for me. I didn't take, well, I took a couple of seconds, and actually longer than that really, to comprehend what happened and to absorb it and try to think about it. And it was a shock actually, and it did sort of impact me more than I thought it would, because prior to this I haven't really, before the last 5 years, I haven't really thought about the monarchy and the Queen in a personal way. Obviously I knew the importance it held in British society and the way that its role is entwined with our constitution and our parliament, being that we are a constitutional monarchy in the UK. And I knew the importance of that, but I never had a personal connection to the idea of monarchy or to Her Majesty herself. But as I learned more about the idea of monarchy and the sort of stability it allows the UK to have above politics, above the level of dispute that people have on a daily basis, as a unifying figure, which Her Majesty had done excellently well for 70 years. But beyond that as well, the fact that she was such a remarkable person, it takes a special character, a special person to be able to perform that role so well, especially in a world that's changing. And over the last 70 years, it's changed so much that she's been able to remain as strong in her presence and in her closeness with British people and the Commonwealth in general. I think it was testament to her that last year, this last year of her reign, and the Platinum Jubilee, the celebrations that were held, the amount of people involved in different Commonwealth nations, and also obviously the tributes and sort of commentary provided after her death last week by people around the world. It's sort of a testament to her legacy that she did impact so many people, and not merely just from a monarchy's perspective, because a lot of countries don't have monarchies nowadays, and it's more from a world leader point of view, that she was able to connect with people, and she was such a remarkable person in the way she was able to unify people of different countries and different areas around the world. And yeah, she didn't do much wrong publicly in terms of what she was saying or actions, which is quite remarkable in its own way, because think about 70 years and the rise of technology, the rise of media, to not have a massive uproar about something that had happened, obviously bar the Princess Diana's death and sort of the questions asked at the royal family about their reaction and their response. The rest of her 70-year reign, she hadn't been sort of placed into any scandals or personally, and it's amazing that she's been able to do that so strongly and for so long. And obviously, the last week she had cancelled a couple of things prior to Thursday, but she was able to do her duty right up until her last day. So I think it's necessary for people, especially in the UK, to take time to think about it. Maybe you're not a strong monarchist or a royalist, but it's just thinking of an individual personal level. I think she was a remarkable woman, and I think that time should be taken to think about her and the role that she played also within her own family, not from a royal perspective, but just a family perspective. She was a very, very good grandmother, obviously great grandmother as well, but most of all, she was a very, very good mother, and she was a maternal figure for the country, but also she was an important aspect of the family, the royal family. No matter what's happened and have things happen, well, things have happened the last couple of years, and there's been reporting on that, but she's been able to maintain her sort of neutrality, not just politically, but neutrality in terms of how people should sort of behave in a family and try to unite people together despite differences, because there are differences in families. And I think she did a really, really good job in that sense, as well as leading the country through different times, difficult times, obviously, coming out of World War II and going through different recessions and different wars and different crises. Such as the pandemic, which has been the most recent big crisis in terms of affecting everyone around the world. She was able to maintain her class really, and her way to inspire people. I think her Christmas address during the pandemic about "We will meet again" was very touching, and she carried it in a certain way that only she could do that. I think her words when she spoke had meaning to them and had depth to them. I just think she was a remarkable leader. And obviously, most people think of leaders in a political sense or in terms of leading the country like a president. But she was beyond that. I think she was a symbolic leader, something that the British character and the British society had been founded upon in the modern world anyway. She redefined what it meant to be a monarch. She was able to adapt to the changes that had swept through society across the world in the last century. Obviously, 70 years for her, but I think it was when she became queen, it was a very testing time for her. She was never expected to become queen. A series of events led up to that, obviously, but it was a very testing time for her. Sort of overseeing the end of the British Empire and the beginning of the Commonwealth, and obviously the legacy of World War II. In the political sense, obviously the Cold War, which had gripped a lot of countries around the world following World War II, and I think just in terms of starting out as a monarch, it was a very difficult time for her, and I think she was very young when she started, so I think she did remarkably well to adapt to times, and I think she was able to redefine, as I said, the role of monarch, especially in the modernising world. A lot of people have called for the end of the monarchy because they don't understand how it fits into, especially British society and a functioning democracy. How can there be an unelected leader? There might be symbolic, but how can there be an unelected leader at the head of a country that is a Western democracy in its own labelling? But I disagree with that, but I'm not going to go into that part. But she was able to sort of connect with people beyond that. So the dispute about monarchy, I think she touched some people who were anti-monarchy as just a good leader, a good person who stayed out of politics, stayed out of decision making beyond the constitutional limits of her role. And I think that was a testament to her duty and the way she was able to carry out her duty, which is what she always stressed in her speech when she was younger. She said, "I will give my life to serve you." So you meaning not just British public, but people around the world in terms of the Commonwealth and just people in general. I think that's what she meant. I think it's a lot to take in terms of a whole lifetime, but especially for me, only being alive for the last 20 years of her reign, or to the last couple of decades of reign. I think it's going to take a while to understand a lot of it, and it's going to take a while for Britain, I think, as a country to sort of come to terms with the change that's going to happen. I wish King Charles III, as he is known now, all the best. I think he will. He has got a difficult task in his hands, but I think he will hopefully do very, very well and not emulate Her Majesty, because I think she was a really unique leader, but sort of fulfill the monarchy role in his own way and try to lead the country through whatever there may be in the future. So I think he will be okay. I do have my concerns about monarchy in the future, but I think he'll be a good leader for the here and now at the moment, I think. But yeah, I mean, just to conclude, Her Majesty was such a remarkable person, learned about all the stuff she was doing in terms of her personality and her sense of humour. You don't hear much about her private life, but obviously now things come out again about sort of her life story and her life events and sort of things that led up to her reign beginning, and also like the behind the scenes interactions, especially with prime ministers as well. Obviously, the former prime ministers have been given their tributes to Her Majesty, and other people as well, just general public. It's been so nice to hear different stories and different interactions with Her Majesty through the years. And yeah, no, I think it was a very sad time for the country and around the world a couple of days ago, but I think she would want us to carry on in somewhat of a normal way and get through these testing times of change, not just in terms of the monarchy, but also the winter, with the energy crisis that is going on at the moment. I think she would want us to get through together, and she was always that unifying factor, so I think we need to try to work together in the way that she would have done, and she would have been at the head of that. So hopefully King Charles III can sort of assume that role now, and we can see how it goes. But yeah, so hopefully that's given you some thoughts about the monarchy, and not monarchy actually, not in general, but Queen Elizabeth II, what a remarkable person she was, and how she was able maybe to sort of lead the country in terms of the UK beyond where it started or where she became queen in the 1950s. So I think she left it in a much better place than it started. She was able to unify the country, unify people just generally around the world who are from different backgrounds, different thoughts, different beliefs about everything. But she was able to be beyond that, almost like a symbol of humans being able to work together and to respect, I think, just individuals that do a lot of good for society. She was very keen to acknowledge the work that Britons do, whether that be famous or not. I think she was just a really good person. She was a very good person in the sense that she had time for others and she wanted to learn more about others, and that was a very unique ability, I think, and something that hopefully people can continue in their own lives. And obviously the sort of historical and heritage and sort of traditional side of her reign and how she was unique to her, but I think tradition is important, and hopefully the monarchy can remain in place as a unique British tradition, and have a functioning role in the way that politics is done and other things are done in society. And I think people respect that outside of this political spectrum in the UK and all the stuff that goes on in terms of British society. People do respect the role I think the monarchy has in general, but obviously it's always down to ideas and different disputes about what the role of the monarchy is in the modern world. But I think she had delivered the best that she could in terms of keeping the monarchy relevant. I think that was her biggest achievement, and she was just a remarkable person, as I said, keep saying. So yeah, I think she was very symbolic in the way that it's a unique British character, having the monarchy involved in politics, but not involved in politics, if that makes sense. And hopefully we can see that continuing with Charles. But yeah, that's it. That's it for the video. Really, sort of my tribute to the Queen, Her Majesty, after following her death on Thursday. But yeah, so hopefully you've maybe related to some of those points. You've enjoyed the video today. Maybe take some time, or you have done already, to reflect on Her Majesty and what it meant to you. And maybe it doesn't mean too much to you, but just take a moment to think about it in terms of a more historical point of view, because it's a very very big historical event. But yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like on the video and leave your comments down below, and or maybe suggest some other videos you would like me to see, like me to do. But I've got some other ideas, so I'll get into those soon. But in the meantime, if you, yeah, as I said, leave a like on the video, and I shall see you again very soon for another video on the channel. Thank you very much for watching.